Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Tim Montgomery. I'll be your host today for New Cyber Frontier on this new edition. We have Dr. Gorog, who has recently been on a trip and talking about some of the subject matters in this trip, post-digital transformation in the cybersecurity arena. And hopefully we can kind of talk about your trip there. How you doing, Dr. Gorog, today?
Good, Tim.
Yeah. So sounds like you've been able to go on IEEE Digital, kind of do a free-for-all. They sent you on a large trip. Explain a little bit about that. We get into this conversation about things.
Yeah, I chair the IEEE Digital Privacy Initiative under Future Directions, and once a year I kind of go on, plan all year to hit as many of our participating members, universities, and events, that type of thing. So yeah, this year I left in late June, did a couple stops in Canada, spoke at I.T.S, Intelligent Transportation Systems, that is in Canada, and then did a all the way around the world. It's the first time I've ever done that, but I went west to go east, and ended up in through Singapore, and then in Milan, Italy, Vienna, University of Vienna, Budapest, Hungary, which I was excited about because I'm half Hungarian background, so I'd never been there. But Obuda University in Budapest, and then a conference there, the Security and Privacy European, the S&P Europe.
It sounded like
and then ended up in Bristol in the UK before I came back to the US. And Bristol was the Privacy Enhancing Technologies Conference, which we hope to get a lot of people that I met around the world on the show talking here shortly. So yeah, see, there it's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
informative.
the direction, going west to come east, right? Come back across the Atlantic into the US.
Yeah, I think I did that one time in my life, and I ended up reliving Halloween twice.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
If you go, I think if you head that direction, I forget which day I missed. You lose one day, right, when you're going across the Pacific. So I never will get that day back.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the day, and then when we went across, we went back into the day after it was over for a few more hours in Alaska, so we were stuck there for a while. But I distinctly remember that was Halloween. It was October 31st, one year.
I remember one year I went to Asia and I lost, what was it, St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
I went from the 17th or the 16th to the 18th, and never had that day. So
yeah, quite peculiar. So this IEEE, what kind of subjects are we talking about? I know there's one particular one you'd like to bring up, which I did say a little bit about here when I started. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what I was speaking on was virtual trust, digital privacy, and what that looks like, in a post-digital transformation world. Because a lot of what's been coming out of digital or IEEE lately, and with one of our last shows talked about this, is the mega trends and what is on the horizon. They spent multiple years putting the mega trends together, and digital transformation is the biggest mega trend. It's that we are moving away from anything physical. And what does that look like? I start out speaking, I put a slide up, and I show that, the first thing is, why is this so big? Why is this so important? And it's because it's happening without most of us knowing.
Yeah.
Because the younger generation, we'll say under 10 years old, has grown up without toys. They're already there. Their
Yeah.
toy is that touchpad.
Yeah.
Their
The
toy
virtual.
store is the download store. And I know I got a little bear for one of my friend's daughters, and she's
Yeah.
like, "This is the first toy I have." She's 8,
That's interesting. Yeah.
and and
That's a
it was
far cry from where we started, right?
and if you look around, it's something that we might have missed as well. All the toy stores are gone.
This is true. Everything went online.
Well, they went online, but they didn't just go online. They quit making them. Look around. The toys are now being sold to adults as collector's items.
Yeah.
What used to pass as a toy. And this is something that, we might have even missed, most of us, through the COVID really made a bounce on it. The pandemic made a leap forward. But if we step back and look at what's happening right now, it is in full swing. And entire lives will be lived without anything physical to recall from it. Everything virtual. So my presentation started out with, well, what does that look like if we are going with this assumption? And it's not even an assumption. The kids aren't going to come back and start being real world stuff after growing up without any. I mean, similarly, I've seen kids like, oh, why'd you print out this picture? And they're
Yeah.
looking at an old Polaroid they found in the shelves somewhere. Like, why did you print this out? Um, because they have no concept of why you would do that. It's just going to be junk. Once it's in the real world, it's garbage.
Right. And that's the training thought processes, right? That project this concept of digital transformation, right?
Uh-huh.
So everything we think of, it should be digital. And the new generation of thinking that's the way it should be. That's the standard now. It's a flip, right? Of
Yeah,
our
it's
from what
they have no
we grew up
concept.
with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it'll get even more so. No concept of physical things. Like I said, that picture was a wasted effort because it's everything they ever got that was printed out has been thrown away.
Yeah. So whole generation people getting into the workforce that has this concept starting to trend.
Hmm.
And where do we sit as far as, the workforce, that
Well, I mean,
concept moving into the full trend of the workforce?
yeah. So, and that's what it start out with is that concept. Now think about the workforce in 50 years.
Yeah.
What I think we're up for a break here if you want to take one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you want to. I was at 7 minutes there. That's okay. All right. We can take a break, like Dr. Gorog said. um, so let's take a break and we will be back right after we hear from our sponsors.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Okay, welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. And before we went on break, we were talking a little bit about how digital transportation is starting to trend for a new generation of those that are coming up and not realizing just what the impacts might be to the workforce.
Yeah.
So what we were, I guess the concept here is the workforce in 50 years, what you were saying, and just what that might look like. I mean, it sounds a little scary to me, but I don't know.
Well,
What do you think?
in 50 years, let's theorize about the future, right?
Yeah.
Those people that grew up without printing anything out, because if they print it out, it's garbage, um, have 50 years worth of data collected. So at work, at home, their personal lives, everything they own is now data. So this brings us full circle to question of, do they own it? And who
Uh,
owns it? So when we're looking at digital privacy,
hmm.
is determining what parts of that data that you've created, amassed over a whole lifetime, are private to you, how you have control over it, and who you give access to use it, and in what
Right.
way. And then the virtual trust is, how do you be able to trust people, systems, computers out there that you only know virtually, you only communicate, you only interact with virtually, because you're not going to see all those people and systems that represent those things in your virtual sphere, your virtual scope. And all these things are that post digital transformation when there's nothing physical left. We're already there. Like my work for the last decade, I don't make anything physical unless I decide to print it out.
Yeah.
My
Well,
whole
printing
work
itself.
effort is, and I have focused, and a lot of us in the professional world, especially companies, focus on maintaining that. How do we protect that? How do we put that into something that's ours? Um, but for the individual, which is what these people are, what the data production. I mean, if 50 years from now, everything you've done is digital, and you've given all that away every time you made it, because that's the way we do right now. Everything you put on the web, everything you give, everything you put on your email, everything you send that's accessible to all the engines, all the platforms that we use, their
Right.
privacy policy says if you put it on our site, it's ours.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
no
They
longer
own.
yours. So in
Right.
50 years, everything you made, you gave to somebody instantly. You own nothing. A couple of the companies that were forward looking at how do they start protecting stuff own big chunks of things. This trend is not sustainable because the individual will want a way to be able to own their life.
Yeah.
Those tools, and this is why I'm getting to, where does this affect cybersecurity? Those tools in cybersecurity exist now for companies. They are in the collections of data protecting. You have to spend a lot of money, you have to get there
Hmm.
to be able to do that. You have to have a big budget to get all these tools. To be able to privatize this and individualize it, which has to happen for this trend to be possible, requires a whole different thought process.
Yeah. When we talk about putting things in the cloud, and then the current policy saying if because we all know the cloud is just someone else's computer, right? That's what's always defined as the cloud. Either that or it's this nice little picture of a cloud on the diagram, right? Um, and then they say they own it by just possession of it. It sounds like we're going to need to redefine that in some ways. I mean, I guess it's like similar to somebody cutting off the front half of your house, and it's just viewed by everybody, and you can just walk in and walk out and take things and put things in as you want to. There is nothing left, right?
Mhm.
There is no, I guess, personal domain, you could say, if you're virtualizing everything and now nothing's created. So
That's a lot of what the Digital Privacy Initiative 3 years ago that I kind of helped start is
yeah.
about. Is, hey, we need to start asking this question. We need to
Yeah.
find out what it is. And it's been 3 years of a lot of categorizing definitions, because it's a whole new area. But if you start going past it, and this is what we're doing now, we've done a lot of the categorization, we've done a lot of the defining, we've put together a model that says what are the key defining influences. If you put the individual at the center, which is what, at some point, the digital world mapping over to the virtual or the physical world, having all those pieces that we know in the physical world, the individual has to have these pieces that how they interact with society. For one,
Hmm.
society might have rules over something virtual you have. We learned this in COVID. Society had the power to enforce your the collection of your data about illnesses, and
Right.
that trumped the individual. In some countries, that fit right in with um, their culture, where in some places, the government has trump over the individuals. In other places, the individual and their sovereignty in data aspects are the key. And you see that in GDPR. In the
Mhm.
United States, it's kind of been a little bit detached, started out as a free for all. Now, because the money and who has money to influence policy, say at the federal state level, is big companies. There's a lot of money coming in to say, protect what I already have, protect my data, protect my rights to be able to continue to do what I do.
Yeah.
And there's that question of the individual. And that's why the digital privacy with IEEE was, hey, IEEE is funded by individual membership. We're all individuals here. Let's start looking at privacy as the rights of us. We're the ones that are proponents of this.
Right. And businesses, when you break them down, they literally become personal, right? And when you do taxes, when you file taxes, that has its own ID number, just like you do as a person.
Hmm.
So we're already getting the statute of everything kind of singularities, looking as an individual, basically. So I mean, that kind of plays roles in the regulations we have now on some things and some ways.
If you think about it, though, the taxes and the policies are protecting the government and their revenue
Well,
stream.
taxation is, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So the interesting thing is that you know we can decide what services to use. We can start using services that might provide some semblance of, at least they're saying by their policies, hey, we're protecting your privacy, or we think about your privacy. But the thing that is kind of the biggest kind of open area is what can be referred to as inferred information. Something you infer by looking at data that you have of either related to an individual or not, of behaviors, activities, group inferences, individual inferences over time. Like, how
Yeah.
often do you stop at the grocery store? How often do you use these products? How often do you, um, how many miles do you drive your car? How safe are you? Because how long does it take you to get between 2 points? Things like that
Yeah.
are inferences, and that's about the individual with respect to time. Now, the groups of individuals with respect to each other, there's a lot of value in determining how people are going to react to this marketing, how and
Mhm.
who's going to buy in this area. When it gets warmer out, what products are sold or bought more? When people
Yeah.
will feel this way, all those inferences that relate to money might also compromise something that they might not want to be out there. But how that's used and everything is very different in many areas. In the United States, it's pretty much almost a free for all. If you can get the data and figure out how to use it, that's it's not a problem.
And
In other
categorizing
countries,
data,
it's a little bit different. Yeah.
yeah. Categorizing data, I mean, the government does that well. PII, SSI, classified, unclassified, confidential. They are starting regulatory measures to imply certain things across the board that would accompany what you're saying. But I just don't think the emphasis is where it should be. Like I said, like the IRS part, it's more protection for the government versus protection for the individual, in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So who's watching out for the individual, and how does those regulations apply? So we were talking about cybersecurity measures here. I mean,
Yeah, we got off on that.
yeah. um, I mean, what are some of the best practices you think in cybersecurity that we could apply in this case that we're talking about for digital transformation?
Yeah. So and that's really where we were going. I think. Are you ready for a break here?
Yeah, we can do a break. I didn't know you want to put two breaks in there. All right. All right. We'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors. Thank you.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Okay, welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. I'm your host, Tim Montgomery, and today we're here talking about digital transformation. Before the break, we got into some of the regulations and measures, how it looks like more protection from that standpoint or perspective could be trending more towards the way the government wants it versus an individual. And there's not much protection there for privacy for the individual. And some of the best business practices that we were talking about kind of trending, and some of the cybersecurity measures that we could apply. So, I mean, Dr. Gorog, we were getting into a little bit before the break, the best business or best cybersecurity best practices. I guess that's what we were.
Yeah.
And how that could impact. I mean, just like
yeah.
you
So let's let me take a sorry sorry Tim. Let me take a path a little bit in history, and let's say, you know, we have so many compromises now. We have cyber problems, cyber breaches in the news all the time.
Yeah.
Does our culture think that's a problem? Or is it just acceptable business? Is there acceptable losses? You know, we accept so much theft in stores. And we accept so much damaged product, and we put it right into our overhead. So we make it part of the business model. Are we at the point where what the approach that we use for cybersecurity is acceptable losses, and culturally we've just said, you know, that's just the nature of being in the technological era, that you're going to have breaches all the time? That's a question we can ask everybody that listens to the show. Are we okay with what we've put together? 20, 30 years into cybersecurity as an industry, are we okay? Is it going the right direction? What do you think about that?
Well, you know, just in the past year or two, they've instigated some executive orders within the government that has pushed the narrative to kind of infer penalties on not only your cybersecurity fellows when they don't do the continuous monitoring measures, or a company and an organization that doesn't maintain those types of measures as we go along, but it also infers legal actions that can punish CEOs for not having a program. So I saw that come up in March of, I think, 2023, and I think it started being applied not even 6 to 8 months later. So we're in that window of how they're transitioning into some of this to try to enforce more of it.
What's the penalty? What's the penalties? Getting fired?
Fines. You can serve jail time now. And I haven't seen much of it go on, but just like with the hedge funds, how they decided to go against those individuals for what they did, and how they punished them, I'm pretty sure this is what's trending for cybersecurity professionals. You know, in my profession and experience, think about it. Have you ever told, you know, you had a system, you were asked to protect the system, you came up with methods to enforce protection, and you were always pushed off year after year after year, and it seemed like they just didn't think it was important. But when the breach comes, you're the cybersecurity person now having to answer for it, and you're trying to say, well, we gave you a timeline of 3 years to get us on track where we wouldn't have had this problem, and they acted like it was never there. I mean, I've seen that before. So
that's kind of what I'm saying. Have we accepted that what we're running into, the periodic breaches, how often they happen, is just doing business? That's what's going to happen. And if so, then, you know, what we've done, and I always say that I saw back in, you know, we started the big data revolution, I'd say 2010 to 2015, it went in full swing. And to the point where big data views everything as a collection.
Right.
Okay. So you're looking at collections of cloud data, networks of anonymous users, data monitors only at boundary points of networks. They don't care what's on either side, don't care where it came from. Just looking at the data as a bandwidth, how much is going
Mhm.
by you at a given point. And user analysis is historical, trends, traits, just big data models that give us something. What does this give us? You know, the individual that is the attacker isn't addressed in the collective. They're not the average. They're not going to be seen in the normal operation. They're looking at zero-day attacks. They're exploiting weaknesses for the first time. They're social engineering and becoming somebody else and mimicking that person, mimicking that operation. We're not looking for if we're okay with the status quo of cybersecurity is pattern analysis, is monitoring big pools of things, is big data, is collective analysis of volumes, and we don't look at the potential of an individual, um, we're not going to change anything.
Yeah.
If we look at big data as that is the best way to do cybersecurity, we are at the best we can do. We and for years they've been saying, well, AI will solve this problem. Yeah, we can have a separate. I think we'll have a separate talk on AI. But you give everybody
Yeah.
a gun and you expect that only the good guys are going to protect you with them. Yeah, you're kind of missing, the human nature in the aspect. So, you know, I would say that what the big data cybersecurity model, in my opinion, is failing and has already failed. I would say it's
Yeah.
entirely failed. We need a new way to look at it. And this post digital revolution, the individualization of it, is the way to look at it. We have to say, how do we positively identify good people? And the zero trust was the first time I heard this being thrown out as okay, we need to know who we trust and only work with the people we trust. How do you implement that is still in question because we just took all the data analytics, the big data models, the collective analysis, and we called it zero trust. And it's not. It's just the same thing reclassified. We have to literally say that we're doing security by design. We're implementing from the ground up and we're taking a different approach to it. We're
Mhm.
implementing the the virtual trust and the digital privacy to individual control level. All right. And it's going to take time because those tools for the individual control level don't exist at all. Therefore, a collection of data that's a couple petabytes. Let's look at the volumes. It's just missing. So once those tools become available and the individual starts basically taking themselves, their data out of the pool of free data, freely available, that changes over time. And that's what the future looks like as it migrates away from collective cybersecurity, collective data analysis to individualized. And I'll give you an example of this. When we first, you know, colonized the Americas, the West was wide open. It's
Yeah.
not wide open anymore. There's fences, there's property boundaries, there's land parcels. Everybody went to individual ownership. And the people who were making big money by the open range didn't like it at first because they lived off the open range, the free range data,
Right.
and they're not going to like it. And those companies that live off of free range are going to fight the individualization because it takes their value. But whose value is it? It's the 50 years of life and everything's virtual, everything's digital. People are going to the individual's going to fight for that too. And piece by piece it gets taken away and all the states, all the land, all the cities will be in parcels with fences and yards.
Yeah, that's a good analysis of where we should be headed, I think. And I think the way the individuals look at this is probably going to trend that direction. I don't know what it's going to take because, like I said, the concept of just saying this is the way of doing business and accepting certain things and allowing your privacy to be flushed, basically, and taken from you. I don't know if
What's
people really understand.
Well, it's
what
not just
truth.
privacy. It's in order to implement
Yeah,
that, you have to have security on an individual basis,
yeah,
containerized ability to secure your yard. You might not set up privacy. You might have a fence. Everybody can see into your yard, but you're securing that that's your yard.
yeah, yeah. I see how people could physically see that, but then when it comes to the virtual environment, are they really thinking that process? I mean, I don't know what, as an individual that uses things every day, do they
I mean,
see it?
when you get to the point though, after 20 years when you've given all your data away, we're
Yeah.
already there. We've been giving everything away to whatever app, whatever neat little whiz bang thing we get
Hmm.
download. We give all our data away. Um, so we've been doing this for 20 years. How do you feel about every idea, everything you've done in the last 20 years belongs to everybody?
Yeah, I don't like the idea at all. But then
And,
there
and
comes
you're get people are getting
legislation.
there.
Yeah, the legislation part has to come in, regulation has to come in.
I think it's the tools to make it happen. That's what we've
Yeah,
been focusing on. That's what Blockframe does, is
yeah,
make the tools to individualize security. Privacy and trust are pieces that had to be put in there to be able to individualize security.
yeah.
But the we get a glimpse of this every so often, and the cryptocurrency craze is a glimpse at individualizing control of and virtual trust. The privacy wasn't there. I mean, even though people think, "Oh, I'm private doing my transactions," all those are traceable if somebody
Mhm.
can know which key's yours. So privacy really wasn't there. It was privacy by obscurity and volume, and you could be slightly pseudo anonymous if somebody wasn't looking for you with your transactions. But the trust, the virtual trust is what that showed us. And the fact that people are so crazy about it shows how big any technology that enables the individual to privatize their data will be.
So do you think that most people, if you start trending this direction, what kind of issues do you think you might see on the front? I know what comes to mind is the Apple phone and the terrorist act that happened in California, and how they were trying to protect, regardless, the information that was on the phone, according to what they were trying to do, regardless of the act that was happening. And that sent a lot of people into really starting to judge, coming up with very, unrealistic ideas in some ways about how this can be used in a different direction than it should be.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The Apple thing is a good example that you bring up because Apple wasn't protecting that individual.
Yeah,
They were protecting their infrastructure, their interface, that if they opened it up, they weren't just opening it up for that one user. They were showing how they would have to open up the way that they get into all of their devices and
right,
show, and they know this behind the scenes. They know how to do this, but
right,
they didn't want to give that over to the government and lose that control.
right.
So it wasn't that user that they were trying to save, it was their business model.
Yeah, that's what protects, or at least when you sign on to Apple, they have that in their tool set to be
Yeah,
using to boost their marketing power.
their
But
ability to individualize each device is what makes them be able to protect which vendors can sell software for it,
mhm.
have their Apple store, which media files can be absorbed by that thing, sell their iTunes. Every part of their business feature is dependent on that individualization control of security on their devices that the government was asking them to open up.
So this idea behind block frame and using a blockchain could actually create the same thing across the board without the device
Yes.
in a
So
virtual world.
that's the model actually that we
Yeah.
use, is to create that ecosystem, but at the same time enable the social pieces where if somebody issues, because all those individual security credentials are individual to the user, and by a subpoena or a legitimate court order could be opened up one at a time and provided. So that that type of feature becomes possible because we're not breaking Apple to give somebody's security credentials out to the government. We're breaking Tim Montgomery to give his security credentials out to the government.
Which wouldn't affect every other person that's there.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting how that functions. So there is a method. The tool, perception of the tool and its development is all there coming forward as we start to see these dilemmas become more and more in our daily lives. So that's good.
I think we just have to get to the point where we know or accept or not whether big data security is adequate. If big data security is adequate, we step up to AI doing it. We make it bigger, faster, more. Breaches are going to be at the same speed.
No, you're right. AI is not the answer because there's always a counter AI.
Yeah.
That's matching whatever AI always. If human can do it, a human can undo it. That's what I always say. So it's just going to match whatever equal to. So we're kind of closing in here on our talk. Any last thoughts, closing thoughts you got there, Dr. Gorog?
I think I just gave my last closing thought there is that, if we want to change this, and it's happening slowly. We're having conversations at the top level. The technology we've been working on for 10, 15 years can demonstrate this already. And the individuals want it. The big companies sometimes are a little reluctant. As I told you, the free range is what they've been building their business models on. And that'll have to shift too. We won't say change, get rid of, they're bad. We'll say that shift will happen slowly.
Yeah, so blockchain is a technology solution that certainly could provide this across the board that would trend privacy the way it should in the internet itself. So, okay, that's all we got time for today. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. And until next time, everyone take care and stay safe. And we'll see you next time on New Cyber Frontier. Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.